In a genre swarming with nightmarish creatures and all kinds of visceral grotesquerie, there's plenty of horrific imagery in horror cinema for audiences to lose sleep over. However, as the Blair Witch Project proved, when it comes to crafting the most terror, sometimes showing less or even nothing at all can be vastly more effective than any amount of blood can achieve on its own. So with that in mind, I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 horror movies that use your imagination against you. Number 10, Absentia. From the likes of Dr. Sleep, Oculus, and the masterful Midnight Mass, Mike Flanagan has quickly become a figure at the forefront of horror. Each of his forays into the genre has been as effectively chilling as the last, but you may have missed his straight-to-video sleeper hit, Absentia, the first entry on this list. This shoestring-budget psychological thriller centers upon Trisha, who is coming to terms with her husband's mysterious disappearance. Just as she's about to declare him dead in Absentia, he suddenly reappears, bloodied and terrified of a tunnel near the house. And there is a good reason for that. As the family soon discover, a strange insectoid creature inhabits the tunnel's walls and has been taking people there for many years. Though only catching brief glimpses of the monster throughout the film, Flanagan keeps it alongside its motivations shrouded in secrecy. We never find out what it is, what its intentions are, or what it does to its victims inside the impossible space behind the tunnel's walls. Judging by reactions alone, though, it can't be anything pleasant. Number 9, Lake Mungo. Lake Mungo lives up to this list title just so much, and that's part of why so many people simply don't jive with it. Framed as a mockumentary, this horror follows the family of a dead girl called Alice, who through a series of talking heads and found footage relay these strange occurrences around their home following her death. The slow burn of the story, combined with these spoken testimonies, gets your brain thinking at every step about the story, filling in what the family is saying, and jumping to conclusions before twists are revealed. In that way, it's as much a campfire ghost story as it is a regular horror movie, with a lot of the suspense coming through in the delivery and the accompanying music and documentary footage. Of course, there are still straight-up scares here, including an unforgettable one towards the end, if you know you know, but the film gets you intellectually unraveling the mystery of Alice's death with your mind, and conjures up horrific images of the kinds of things she could have been dealing with. Number 8, The Night House. David Bruckner's The Night House is one of the under-the-radar 2021 horrors that's been picking up more and more praise recently, thanks to strong word of mouth, and you can see why. Following Rebecca Hall's Beth, a grieving woman mourning the suicide of her husband, she finds herself haunted in a home that her husband built for the pair. Uncovering secrets about her marriage that she never knew, Beth can't shake the feeling that there's some kind of presence in the house with her, whether it's her husband or something more nefarious, as she searches for meaning in this tragedy. Though it still packs a few obvious scares, The Night House is all about suggestion, leaving it to viewers to find these same supernatural patterns that Beth apparently is. Is that shape you saw in the dark really a figure, or is it just your mind playing tricks? All the way through, the film plays with the question of whether Beth is looking too hard and seeing what she wants to see, or not looking close enough. Another slow burn, the viewer feels trapped in this house with Beth, letting their own imagination run wild with a plot that leads it further down the rabbit hole. Number 7, Jaws. We had to have a classic on here somewhere. Nothing has the power to ruin the terror of a creature feature more than the reveal of a poorly designed monster. Whether that be wonky CGI or noticeably bad effects, when the illusion is shattered and the monster is no longer seen as a threat, all of the suspense is instantly drained from the film. No filmmaker understood this better than Steven Spielberg though when he made the mammoth blockbuster Jaws, and it was all a matter of circumstance. That's because originally the mechanical shark was supposed to be a prominent presence in this film, but due to a slew of production problems as well as the rubber shark not being very intimidating, Spielberg was forced to keep the aquatic predator unseen. Consequently, the opening scene in which we see a midnight swimmer dragged to their doom has become ingrained in the memories of anyone who's seen this film, and the reason for making many petrified of the ocean to begin with, including me. As we see the doomed teen violently thrashed around, all we can think about is the size and strength of whatever toothy terror has grabbed hold of them or whatever happened during the moments that they were pulled under for the last time. Number 6, The Ruins. The Ruins is a visceral body horror movie that sees a group of tourists faced with the worst holiday imaginable. Vacationing in Mexico, two American couples befriend a German tourist planning to search for his brother who hasn't returned from Mayan ruins deep in the jungle. Upon arriving at the location, the group are confronted by armed villagers who attempt to deter them. But when one of the party accidentally steps on the vines covering the area, they're forced to the top of the temple. With nowhere to go, the travelers soon realize that the peculiar vines that surround them are actually sentient, crawling into their wounds and eating the flesh down to the bone. As each of the group comes to their fate, the ruins admittedly leaves very little to the imagination when it comes to its graphic violence. What is left for us to wonder though is the nature of the vines themselves. Are they an ancient evil, a manifestation of a main god, or simply a rare species of plant? Likewise, the ending also contains some rather bleak implications for us to think about. Number 5, Creep. Creep is the kind of movie that's best going into knowing as little as possible. So as far as the plot is concerned, all I'll say about it is that it's about a dude who's paid to video record a man dying of a terminal illness who wants to leave behind something for his family. This dude though, called Joseph, is one strange SOB. Consequently, with him not doing anything actively villainous or nefarious, but being a weird bloke in general, the viewer is left with only their imagination trying to get a handle on who he is. You're constantly questioning whether he's eccentric and harmless, or maybe capable of something far more. Are we just witnessing an emotional man acting a bit weird in the face of death, or something else? Should we be more worried about the cameraman? What is this whole story building towards? Answers are finally revealed in the last act, but it's this guessing game that makes the movie so effective. You're constantly imagining what you'd do in this situation, and whether you'd want to honor the wishes of a dying man out of politeness, or just get the hell out of there when things start to take a weird turn. Number 4, The Shining. Helmed by one of the greatest directors in cinema history and adapted from one of the most cherished horror novels penned by one of the most celebrated writers, it's no surprise that The Shining is frequently held as the pinnacle of horror cinema. Recounting the Torrance family's traumatizing stay at the Overlook Hotel during the winter season, The Shining is bursting with all kinds of ghoulish delights. Whether it's subtle details like moving props in the background or impossible corridors to the less subtle blasting of the soundtrack and Jack Nicholson's unhinged performance, the Overlook Hotel is just as frightening as it was when the film first hit screens in 1980. However, arguably the most famous and terrifying part of the film is what stays in room 237. See, when arriving at the hotel, Danny is warned to stay away from that room, but when the door is ominously left unlocked, Danny's curiosity gets the better of him. The next time we see him, he's sucking his thumb with painful bruises on his neck. And the film is full of moments like this, right down to the ambiguous final shot, which sets our imaginations into overdrive. For the best example of just how much it does this, check out the documentary called Room 237 for some absolutely out there theories. Number 3, The Conjuring. One problem with modern horror films is an over-reliance on cheap and unimaginative jump scares. While the anticipation of these scares may cause a moment of tension, when the inevitable loud noise happens, all the suspense is instantly lost until the next scare rolls around. But one filmmaker who knows how to make mainstream horror frightening again is James Wan, and he did just that with his acclaimed haunted house chiller, The Conjuring. While there are still a handful of regular jump scares in this film, thankfully none of which are cheap, one nevertheless illustrates that he doesn't need to use them all the time to ensure that audiences sleep with the lights on. In one such scene, we see Christine awaken from her sleep by some invisible presence. Terrified, she wakes her sister to tell her that there's something in the room with them, standing in the darkened doorway. But to Christine's horror, only she seems to see the spirit, and the audience doesn't either. As viewers, we expect something to pounce out from the darkness to torment the girls, but nothing does. Instead, we're forced to imagine what sort of malevolent presence could be standing right in front of us. And nothing sums up this approach to letting the audience's imagination do the scaring than the final stinger, which moves in slowly on a box with audiences bracing for one final jump scare that never actually comes. Number 2, Ringu. One of the landmark horrors that all but single-handedly introduced J-horror to Western audiences, Hideo Nakata's chillingly atmospheric Ringu still remains as effective today as it was in 1999. More of a ghostly murder mystery than supernatural shocker, the film follows journalist Reiko, who joins forces with her ex-husband to find the source of a cursed videotape said to kill those who watch it after 7 days. Throughout their week-long sleuthing, the couple piece together the history behind the tape, that it was forged from the hatred of a young telepathic girl named Sadako, who will promptly crawl from your television to fulfill her promise when your time is up. As chilling as this premise is, however, what makes it even more spine-tingling is that we never actually find out what Sadako does to her victims. While the novel the film is based on attributes her method to transmitting a virus to those who watch her video, this film is purposefully kept vaguer. The only clue we have is the distorted faces of the victims frozen in a moment of agonizing pain. So let's just hope we never find out what actually happened to them, because I don't want to end up like that. Number 1, Pulse. Pulse, not the terrible American remake, is a horror movie all about disconnection and loneliness, so it's no surprise that a lot of its biggest events happen off camera, transforming the world around our main characters. Though it's premised that ghosts are using the internet to come through to our world and turn it into a literal ghost town might make it sound like one of those naff internet horrors from the early 2000s, Pulse's story and themes still totally hold up to this day. As everyone begins to either disappear or kill themselves, we're left to watch as the world slowly falls apart, becomes emptier, and appears more like a waking nightmare than anything else. It's how this happens though, so matter-of-factly that it makes it perfect for this list. This is the loneliest apocalypse you'll ever see, as the characters drift through streets that used to be so vibrant. Like the characters who remain, you're just left trying to imagine what happened to everyone who lived there and where they might be now. So that's our list. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Are there any other movies like this that you think deserve a spot on here, and what do you think about these? While you're down there as well, could you please give us a like, share, subscribe, and head over to whatculture.com for more lists and news like this every single day. Even if you don't know, I've been Josh, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.